democratically elected government. It's also important for other nations, but the key is here, especially what's happening now in the Middle East. Where is the Western strategy of prevention? Not, oh, we didn't know about this. Now it's everything clear, what's happening.
And I think we have a few more minutes, and for me it's very important to send another message about internal policy of Ukraine. And I guess that when we are talking about democracy and elections in Europe, we also hear this conversation and discussion if there is a possibility to have election in Ukraine. Even our partners ask us about that. Will you have presidential election? Will you have a parliament election? Is it possible? Personally, me as a journalist, I see and I talk with many people, politicians. So I see the situation 2 weeks ago in my in neighboring town of my hometown, were destroyed, not destroyed, but at least somehow broken every school and every kindergarten. And usually elections take place in schools. So I have no possibility to have elections in Ukraine during wartime, because this town is very far from the front line. But how to make them safe, how to give people a right to vote and to be elected. Personally, me think that many those soldiers who are fighting on the front line have right to be elected. They have right to be members of parliament, but there's no possibility to them even to be elected. So what do you think about these discussions? I'm not asking about if it's possible, because I don't think so, and even our president already said that. What do you think, and what message should be sent to our partners?
So Ukraine, compared to the aggressor state, always have been conducted free and fair elections. So according to our constitution, during martial law, election is prohibited, it's unconstitutional. So I cannot imagine when Russia daily attacking Ukrainian cities by massive cruise missile, ballistic missile, kamikaze drones. So those who are recommending us to conduct elections, okay guys, come to Ukraine and work in the election commission without anti-air defense systems enough, without all our no-fly zone protection and everything. So it's impossible. So Ukraine, in Russia, it's clear who will be next president. In Ukraine, it's about competition. It's about political competition. It's about voting rights. It's also about, so it's impossible. It's not just, some people say it's about money, we have to find money. Guys, it's not about money, it's about democracy. Really true, free and fair elections during the full-scale war is impossible. So first, victory, and after victory, now our parliament is working on some amendments, how to guarantee for millions of Ukrainians who are living abroad their voting rights, this transition period. We are working, we are preparing, because we are true democracy. We want election, but election free and fair. With our soldiers, their rights not just to vote, but also to run for elections. Because they are the defenders of our freedom, and they have a right to be together with others to compete for being in the offices in the future. And also, I think this is a kind of manipulation. And I understand this is part of Russian propaganda, to say, okay, if Ukraine do not conduct elections, it means that Ukraine is not a democratic state. So it's a trap. And let's be frank, I cannot imagine, I imagine who is in this interest, because can you imagine if Ukraine starts election and then Russia will start bombing us, and then everyone says, look, Ukraine is a failed state. They wanted to conduct, but they are not able. So during the war, election is impossible, and more than 100 think tanks, civil society representatives, they produced a statement 2 months ago with all arguments. Why? So my call to all partners, help Ukraine to win faster. give us everything to need to liberate all our territories, because it's also questions about people living in the now temporarily occupied Crimea, about their rights also to vote. So this is why I really want everyone in Ukraine to be in equal rights to vote. And I think in the history, we've never seen a practical case when country during, even we have the British experience, when they were missing for 10 years elections during the World War II. So why Ukraine should be pushed for first victory? Let's focus on victory first, helping Ukraine with enough ATACMS, enough anti-air defense system, enough F-16, that we have air superiority, and we could defend the Black Sea from Russian attempt to monopolize the Black Sea. So this is the key, and it's not just in the interest of Ukraine, it's in the interest of Romania, Bulgaria, Turkey, Moldova, Georgia, and not just, because the security of the Black Sea matter for Mediterranean countries and globally. So freedom of navigation and actually victory first.
Thank you very much. I think we finished. Time is out. Thank you, everyone, for your attention.
And thank you very much, and good afternoon to all of you. After this discussion about Ukraine and the situation there, we are now moving towards discussing one of the subjects that are of direct interest of the European citizens, and which is one of the outcome of the war in Ukraine, and that is the concern for the food security and the disruptions in food supply that we have seen as a result of the war in Ukraine have, of course, not come unanswered by the European institutions, by the European executive, and this is what we are going to discuss next. And for the next quarter of an hour, we have the privilege of talking to the best person that can update us on how things are being seen from Brussels, from the European Commission, on the changes in terms of the policies that the European executive has done in order to cope with all of these problems. So we have with us online Commissioner for Agriculture, Mr. Janusz Wojciechowski, who is a leading figure, obviously a very long-standing figure in Brussels, having served first as a member of the European Parliament and now as a commissioner. Commissioner, of course, you are very much aware of the concerns that we have here in Central Eastern Europe, not only security concerns, but also concerns about the food supply. And I believe during these 4 years of term as commissioner, you have seen a lot, and you have had to deal with a lot of matters. The policies of the EU have had to be adapted to the current circumstances, and I am aware that there are still a few files pending, and we have the farm-to-fork strategy still pending. We have the changing of the rules for new genomic techniques and pesticides still pending. Can you please update us on where we stand?
Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this afternoon. It's my great pleasure. Today's discussion will focus on food security, a topic that is very important and very timely. The consecutive crisis of COVID-19 and the Russian aggression against Ukraine, combined with the growing effects of climate change, have created challenging conditions for farmers and food security in Europe and across the world. The Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, estimates that about 780 million people across the world faced hunger in 2022. The latest report on the World Food Programme warns that acute food insecurity is likely to increase in 2024. But at this moment, when the need for cooperation is greatest, food is being used as a weapon. This summer, Russia terminated the Black Sea Grain Initiative and has launched attacks on Ukraine's grain storage and export facilities. Clearly, these actions show that Russia continues to weaponize food and undermine global food security. In response, we must come together to ensure that food is not used as a weapon of war, but as an instrument of peace. First and foremost, the European Union and its member states have formulated a joint response to the immediate crisis with a commitment of at least 18 billion in grants for the period 2021-2024. Africa and Middle East, the regions most affected by food insecurity, will receive around half of this support. We are also taking a wider range of actions to strengthen food security in the medium to long term. For example, we are committed to supporting exports from Ukraine, who normally supply around 45 million tons of grain to the global market every year. We need to support all efforts to facilitate exports of Ukraine's grain and other agricultural products to the countries most in need, notably in Africa and Middle East. Following Russia's decision to terminate the Black Sea Grain Initiative, solidarity lanes have become the only roads available for Ukraine's exports and imports. Between May 2022 and September 2023, these alternative roads have allowed Ukraine to export 102 million tons of goods, including 57.8 million tons of agricultural goods, a large portion of which has been grain, oilseeds, and other related products. To ensure that these essential exports can continue, especially to the countries most in need, the European Union has been working closely with Ukraine and neighboring states, as well as with international companies and transport operators to improve the functioning of our solidarity lanes. Since May 2022, we have streamlined procedures, improved traffic management systems, and increased staffing levels. For the future, there has been agreement to increase capacity along the Danube road by making better use of unused capacity of certain ports, particularly Constanta. I applaud the efforts of everyone involved, as all sides have invested significantly in infrastructure, including industry. We will continue to increase the capacity of the existing roads, lowering their cost and developing further alternatives so that Ukraine can export its products to its traditional markets, which are key for global food security. Addressing food security is also an essential part of our work as multilateral level. The European Union and its member states have been actively engaged to mobilize the international community and to cooperate with key partners and international organizations. At the Delhi Leaders Summit in September 2023, G20 members renewed their commitment to improve global food security in line with Sustainable Development Goal number 2. Importantly, that they also endorsed the Deccan high-level principles on food security and nutrition negotiated at the G20 Agriculture Ministers meeting in Hyderabad in June 2023. The G20 most important contribution remains the Agriculture Market Information System, whose remit has been expanded to cover developments in key areas such as fertilizers. G20 members have prioritized the continued funding of the system to ensure better transparency in global food commodity markets and to mitigate the sharp edges of extreme price fluctuations. Of course, more remains to be done, including in the area of transparency. It is also challenging for the G20 to speak with one voice on food security, when one of our members actively engaged in military strikes against agriculture and export infrastructures. In this context, it is important to note that the G7 has been highly outspoken on the food security fallout of Russia's aggression. Its members continue to be the largest humanitarian donors and aid providers for food insecure areas. This shows that multilateral responses work when the involved parties agree to act within the rules of international law. In addition to the work in multilateral organizations, bilateral trade relations have an important role to play in stabilizing sources of supplies. The stability and security of supply chains and trade flows are essential to the functioning of the global food system. In this context, free trade agreements can provide a firm base to long-term partnerships and allow for smooth and uninterrupted trade by policing with transparent and well-established rules. In the current geopolitical climate, the vast network of free trade agreements established by the European Union stabilizes relations with like-minded countries. In the short term, these agreements are important for food security by smoothing trade and the functioning of food supply chains. They are also important in the long term because they enhance trade diversifications and therefore the resilience of the European Union agri-food system. Finally, trade agreements pay increasing attention to environmental and social standards, contributing to the broader goal of sustainable development in their dimensions, economic, environmental, and social. For instance, European Union recent trade agreements include chapters on trade and sustainable development, and the modernized agreement with Chile should include a chapter on sustainable food systems. This enables Europe to play a leading role to reinforce the resilience and sustainability of global food systems. Ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, the challenges facing global food security are significant and complex. We can only address these challenges by working together to deliver pragmatic and effective solutions. Whether it is reinforcing solidarity lanes, building consensus in multilateral organizations, or working to ensure strong and sustainable international trade, the European Union intends to drive these solutions and take the lead in safeguarding global food security. On that note, I would like to thank you for your time. I wish you a constructive forum, and I look forward to the hearing outcomes of our discussions today. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much, Commissioner. If you still have a couple of minutes for questions.
Yes, please.
I'd like to see if there are any questions from the room. Otherwise, I have something prepared. As we are now going towards the end of the mandate of this commission, and the farmers across Europe will need predictability for the legislative agenda. As we know, there are still a few files pending in the European Parliament, such as the rules for the pesticides, for the new genomic techniques. The parliamentarians, as far as we know, are trying to push these files, but there are still a lot of political divisions there. Compromises needed to be reached, whereas the farm-to-fork strategy in the end was delayed because it has to be adapted to the new context. How do you see the legislative agenda for the next 7-8 months remaining of this Parliament and Commission terms? Can we expect on some of this legislation being adopted, or will this be pushed through the next political cycle?
Thank you for this question, but this is not directly my responsibility as the Commissioner for Agriculture. That I can say that Now we have, this year is the first year of the new common agriculture policy. After 2 years transition period, we started our new reformed common agriculture policy with national strategic plans. Each member state submitted the strategic plan which was approved by the European Commission. We started this new policy with many instruments of the green transformation of our agriculture, green architecture in the strategic plans. Eco schemes, mandatory for member states, voluntary for farmers, the practices like carbon farming, more attention to animal welfare, 4 times more expenditure for improving of animal welfare standards than in previous common agriculture policy. But your question was about some initiatives proposed outside of the common agriculture policy, like pesticides regulation, which is now the topic of the negotiations between co-legislators, council and parliament. I have no answer what would be timing of the decision of these questions. There are some controversial questions like pesticides regulation. The main problem to solve is fair approach to the different starting points in member states, because the level of use of pesticides can be measured by this. The indicator is to use how much is used of the active substances per 1 hectare, and differences across between the member states is like there is the countries with the highest uses using 9 kilograms of active substances per hectare, but the countries like our host Romania, where it's 0.6 kilograms per hectare. And this is the problem, how to find a fair approach, taking into account this different situation across the member states. But as I said, this is the responsibility of other members of the European Commission. This is not a part of the common agriculture policy.
Yes, understood. All right, we just have 3 more minutes. I would like to pick up your views also, because you mentioned the trade agreements that the European Union has negotiated, is negotiating. And as we know at the start of this European Commission, this has been labeled as a geopolitical commission, trying to leverage, among others, also trade agreements, society, as a way to pull together this club of democracies. However, some of these trade agreements have faced difficulties, especially for the negotiation at the agricultural chapter. And as we know, the Mercosur agreement is being stuck because of this, and so the agreement with Australia. How can we reconcile this? How can we reconcile defending the interests of the European farmers on the one hand, and at the other hand, still connecting European Union with others to ensure food security?
Okay, thank you for this question. And no, first of all, we have to remember that the European Union is the biggest food exporter in the world. Our surplus in the agri-food trade is just about the 60 billion euro last year, and our interest as a European Union is to have open international trade, because we are generally, European Union is beneficial. We are benefiting this trade, open trade. Then our interest is to reduce all potential barriers and to increase the international trade. But from other hand, you're right, there are some, we have the partners like Mercosur, you mentioned, when the trade balance is negative for our farmers. This is the situation with Mercosur, with last time with Australia. The negotiation with Australia, I participated as representing the agriculture part of these negotiations, and we decided not to finalize agreement with Australia because of interest of farmers, because of the Australian request was too high. It was not acceptable for taking into account the interest of the European farmers. But this is very important to know that we have evaluation what is the potential consequences for European agriculture agreements like Mercosur means about the €2 billion additional import of the agri-food products to the European market. Agreement with Australia is less than 1 billion. And but relations with Ukraine, 2022, the increase of agri-food import from Ukraine to the European Union market, the value of import was increased from 7 billion to 13 billion euro. 6 billion euro more import than before the war, 2021. Now, first of all, the import of grain, of cereals, oilseeds, but it shows that it was a real shock, especially in the frontline countries, frontline member states, like Romania, like Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Bulgaria. It was a huge problem in the market in these countries. It was the reason that European Commission decided to introduce temporary ban for some products, wheat, maize, rapeseed, and sunflower seed. But it's very important that it was not against it was not disruptive for Ukrainian export for transit, because the solidarity lanes, transit via solidarity lanes before this temporary ban 2000, which was introduced 2nd of May 23, it was just about the 3 million tons per month. And during the functioning of this ban, the export via solidarity lanes in transit was just about the 4 million tons. This is a huge achievement, and first of all, Romania is the country which is playing the main role in the solidarity lanes. I think it was successful action. But returning to the trade agreements, yes, that's our interest is to have the open trade. In some agreements, this is the very important question, to protect interest of our farmers. And agreement with last weeks in negotiations with Australia shows that we protect our farmers. We don't leave their interest. We don't pay the interest of farmers for the other interest in the trade.
On the other hand, as far as I saw, the relations with Japan and Canada are easier in terms of agricultural cooperation. I've just saw your visit to Japan, and there is the upcoming EU-Canada summit that will deal also with agricultural products. Is it easier in these countries to cooperate?
Yes, no. For example, with Japan, we export many times more than we import from Japan. And yes, of course, but about the Japan, I have the experience because we had the promotion mission promoting our food in the Japanese market with representative of the European food industry and representatives of farmers also. But it shows that how important is the quality of our food. We have a very good promotion value of our food, the quality of food, which is very important for our partners, especially in Japan. Japanese consumers, they want to know what is the food, the history of food. Geographical indication is very good for the promotion, very good system to inform our partners, consumers, what is the history of the products, what is the products which is the part of our heritage food, food as a part of heritage, local, regional, and this is very important. We should to continue this promotion of our food as a high quality food. I think the general European Union has no chance in the international global competition in intensive, to producing more and more intensive. Our chance, our success is to produce more and more high quality standard food. This is the chance of European food production, European farmers in the global market.
Commissioner, unfortunately, we ran out of time. Thank you very much for your contribution to Bucharest Forum 2023 and for your generosity to share your insights, and good luck for the rest of this mandate, which has certainly not been an uneventful one. And with that, I think we move to the next section. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying with us for this wonderful second day of the Aspen-GMF Bucharest Forum. It's a pleasure to announce we move on to a wonderful topic looking to the foreign policy of Germany especially. The panel title is Zeitenwende in Germany and its impact for a stronger Europe. And it's my pleasure to be introducing on stage Ms. Liliana Popescu, the director of the Diplomatic Institute in Romania, who will be wonderfully moderating the next panel session. Ms. Popescu, thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here. It's the first time I'm moderating in this framework a panel, and it's not any kind of panel, a special panel. I think that many of the participants were waiting for this discussion. The title was announced. Let me invite the speakers. Mrs. Deputy Minister Simona Cojocaru, Deputy Minister in the Ministry of Romanian National Defense. Welcome and thank you for participating. His Excellency Dr. Per Gebauer, Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany to Romania. Mr. Christos Katsoulis, Director, Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, Regional Office for Cooperation and Peace in Europe in Vienna. And my counterpart in Latvia, Karlis Bukovski, Director of the Latvian Institute of International Affairs in Riga. I will sit down just to introduce the topic. And I have to say that apart from the description that you all have in your papers or on the telephone, I thought of kind of empathizing with Germany and emphasize what I believe that happened in the beginning of this war, of this aggression of Russia against Ukraine. And I think that Germany had to take in a lot. And I wrote down a few, I identified 7 items. First of all, it was clear after the aggression on the 24th of February 2022 that Russia is an enemy. So that was a big thing to swallow after a long period of time in which Germany tried to be civil, friendly, make business with Russia. The challenge of getting involved militarily, which is main part of the Zeitenwende. Then this turning point in the EU as a geopolitical actor, because this aggression from Russia determined this repositioning of the European Union. Then, of course, what are we going to do with Eastern Europe, with Central Eastern Europe, the enlargement issue? It was the first time that the barrier, the Russian barrier to inviting Moldova, Ukraine, Georgia was removed. Then there is this another, the fifth in my list, the China challenge, which is an economic challenge not only for the US but also for the European Union. And we know that Germany is the economic engine of the European Union. I put it like that. You may challenge me, of course. Then there is a matter of European trust in Germany. How much can we trust Germany in this new position, in this turning point? And not least, I would say the seventh element I identified, the challenge of internal democracy in Germany and how to capacitate maybe the population, the German citizens, to make a shift in their view, in their positioning. And I was talking with our distinguished guests and saying that I'm looking forward to listening to a podcast which is specifically focused on the German strategic culture and the change in German strategic culture. And we know that it's more difficult, it takes time to change this culture. So in this note, I would like, sorry for, maybe I'm not well positioned. I'm going to change my position. Sorry about that, I didn't realize. On this note, I would like to invite Deputy Minister Simona Cojocaru to take the floor and address a few words on this topic, of course.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm really delighted to be here in this panel. Thank you for inviting me. Aspen-GMF Forum is such an exceptional venue. And I have to say from the start how important this panel is today, because we have received some very important news from Berlin, and the ambassador here already mentioned previously about this, so I will start with this. Germany's announcement regarding the contribution to Romania's deterrence and defense, air policing. 4 Eurofighters are going to join air policing end of November, so we are really appreciating this coming from Berlin. So this is only a proof that Germany is stepping in to this huge effort here on the eastern flank related to deterrence and defense. The second is that Secretary General Stoltenberg was yesterday and today in Berlin, having talks with Chancellor Scholz, with the Minister of Defense Pistorius, and we have followed a lot the visit, very, very important one. And as Secretary Stoltenberg said yesterday, Germany is making a huge contribution to our shared security. And thirdly, let me say from the beginning that also just yesterday, we saluted the release of German Defense Policy Guidelines 2023. So I'm absolutely happy to be on this stage this Friday afternoon to talk about Zeitenwende and Germany new defense and security policy. So very much important. Zeitenwende is here, Zeitenwende is happening. And this is indeed a dramatic change in the Germany security and defense policy. This is absolutely clear. And I would like also to say that in our view, yes, this is a turning point. And in a famous speech by Chancellor Scholz related to the fact that Europe is our future, he mentioned very clearly, he stated very clearly that the center of gravity is moving eastward in Europe, and that Germany is adopting new roles, such one as the bridge builder. I kept into my mind this expression. It's absolutely very, very relevant today. Germany is a bridge builder in European security, a bridge builder in the transatlantic link, and also in the defense, which is absolutely very, very much important. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, that Zeitenwende is an answer, if you like, an adaptation to the world we are living in today, which, needless to say, is very much complex, very much turbulent. It's a turmoil, and we are facing a new geostrategic context. And I think what is very much important is that Zeitenwende, because we are talking about, as I said, a new approach in German security and defense policies, Zeitenwende has the merit, I think, primarily of separating German approach to international security between what was before and what came after 24th of February. This is absolutely very much important, and even more important, and I'm very much eager to learn from the other distinguished panelists here, I think is the implicit admission that the idea of having Russia as a partner in building European security was a mistake. So this is also very, very important. But as any adaptation process, this is not a one-off event in time. So it takes time. It should be enduring. It should be looking forward to the future. And I think this is not just a correction of previous mistakes. I think this is about an in-depth transformation of Germany's security and defense policies. And by the way, Germany published also very recently, back in June, a national security strategy, which is a premiere, and we have to be very much aware about this. This is a premiere. And I think, if you like, the motto of the leitmotif of the national security strategy of Germany today is that Germany should be, what I said earlier on, a bridge builder. This is absolutely very, very much important. Germany took also a very active approach in relation with partners, with partnership. Look how importantly Germany supported and is supporting Ukraine. Secretary Stoltenberg said yesterday that Germany is, next to US, one of the most important supporters of Ukraine right now in terms of military donations and other equipments. So I think that since we are undergoing the Russian war of aggression in Ukraine, actually, I have to say that all of us, we are having our own Zeitenwende. And I think Germany is leading by example, which is very, very much important. And the massive change in allotting funds for defense budget is only by the proof that Germany, again, is on board, is very much ready to contribute, and is about, to lead by example. And Germany indeed should become a guarantor of European security today, which is also very, very much important. There are still persistent questions in relation with Zeitenwende, but I think we have to listen right now also the other speakers. I have many points in relation with Zeitenwende, ambassador and distinguished panelists. Again, a wonderful, an exceptional day to speak about Germany. It's an amazing coincidence, if you like, this Friday, and I'm over now. Please.
I very much like the enthusiasm of of Deputy Minister Cojocaru. Thank you very much for the points you made. Indeed, it's very timely. Just, it was a coincidence or not? Let me invite now Ambassador, His Excellency, Dr. Per Gebauer, to address a few points.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Simona, fellow panelists. I'd love to say that, of course, it was the timing, particularly for this event, that we decided to send the Eurofighters to Romania. But I have to admit, despite the relevance and the wonderful impact this forum has, that, of course, the main reason is that we sensed in these times of threats, of crisis, we need to align with one another even more. We need to build bridges. And Romania, being such an outstanding ally and partner in these difficult days, deserves our help when it's needed. The initiative to send Eurofighters now, and we will continue to do so also in the years to come, obviously on a regular basis, as we have done in the beginning of the war, but to sort of spontaneously said, okay, we'll fill one gap, was because Romania is threatened, as we all know, being a country right next to Ukraine, right next to this Russian war of aggression that we are facing. And given the recent drone incidents that particularly proved the vulnerability and the closeness of Romania, it was Germany's decision to send the Eurofighters to show our support. They've also come with an anti-drone system, primarily to protect the German contingent, but of course this is also meant as an idea potentially where we can cooperate with Romania in the future. And we are also in talks about further support programs when it comes to munition and other parts. So a lot is going on. Again, it's first of all a sign of our solidarity with the eastern flank countries that are directly affected, and in particular with Romania, whom we can always rely on. Zeitenwende, this turning point in history, indeed describes, first of all, the fact that the Russian aggression was a turning point in history, and which led to the need for a turning point in German policy. We have heard already a few aspects of what this entails. In Germany, they have started to improve our strategy when it comes to the new threats. Liliana, you have rightly referred to it, and you have also referred to the national security strategy, which was adopted in summer, which for the first time brings with it a comprehensive security approach and security term, in a sense that it's not only the military threats we are facing a number of hybrid threats, cyber, when it comes to critical infrastructure. We've seen what's happening in the Baltic Sea, to pipelines, to interconnectors. So the threats are manifold. Fake news is another one. So we also need to shape a security answer which is broader, which also entails a better integrated approach in Germany. So it's not only the Ministry of Defense, obviously, that is dealing with security questions, but all ministries, the federal states, the civil society. So it's an integrated approach, and the same is true when it comes to our international partnerships, where we know security in Germany can only be guaranteed in cooperation, in partnership with our partners and allies in the EU and NATO in particular. So this is, first of all, one element. Of course, a key part of security is, in these days, to be militarily apt to defend against the threats we are all facing. The Russian war of aggression proves this every day, how necessary this is. So one key element, of course, was the first ever pledge to say we'll go to 2% GDP defense spending. Germany has been below 1.5 for many years, so it's a major step. We use for that not only the regular budget, but also, as you've certainly heard, the 100 billion special defense fund money. And we will, the Chancellor has just confirmed it yesterday when he met the Secretary General Stoltenberg in Berlin in 2024, for the first time, we will fulfill this target. Why not already in 2023? I think there's a simple reason for that. If you want to spend more, you need to have something to spend the money on. If you decide to buy tanks today, you won't have the tank tomorrow and pay it tomorrow. It takes time until it is produced, it's ordered, tendered, ordered, produced. So there's a bit of a time left there. But out of the 100 billion euro special fund, just to give you an idea, out of this 100 billion, 2/3, 66 billion, are already contracted. So we've already signed, by the end of the year, we'll have signed contracts for 2/3 of this special fund. So this shows where we are heading. It's also confirmed by our Chancellor, I'm just quoting it from yesterday, saying this is not a thing for the next 2 or 3 years. It will be there, we'll spend 2% in the next 20 years, basically, in the 20s and 30s of this century, because we know you cannot really become able to defend yourself if you're just looking short term. It has been confirmed by our Minister of Defense yesterday. Germany considers itself to be the backbone of European defense. So these are very strong commitments, I feel, and I'm very optimistic, and I fully trust in the credibility, and that Europe can rely on us, that alliance can rely on us, and Germany will do its part. Apart from these elements within Germany, so to speak, of course, Zeitenwende also means that we are more present, more active in the field of deterrence and defense of our allied territory. The commitment to defend every single inch of our territory is not only valid, it's necessary, and it will be fulfilled. Germany is, as you've rightly pointed out, both of you, now the second largest donor of military aid to Ukraine. I know we have drawn a bit of criticism in the beginning of the war as to Germany not doing enough. I think this has changed from my perspective, also when it comes to the Ukrainians themselves, that are greatly appreciative of the fact that Germany has sent battle tanks, other tanks, armored vehicles, has done a great deal when it comes to air defense, which is crucial for Ukraine. As you know, we have delivered Patriot system, we have delivered, I think, at least 3 complete Iris-T SLM systems, which are crucial in defending against attacks on critical infrastructure in Ukraine. Many, many other aspects, artillery, logistics. So the full picture, the full board being delivered to Ukraine. We have been very active together with all our EU partners in training the Ukrainian army in the framework of the EU training mission for Ukraine. Apart from that angle, support for Ukraine, we are very much active in the protection of the eastern flank of our NATO territory. You've rightly pointed out our presence in the air policing gives proof to that. We are, I think, the first country that has announced that it will enlarge the battle group. You have a number of battle groups in all the bordering countries at the eastern flank, led by other European nations. We are the framework nation for Lithuania, for the battle group in Lithuania. We are the first European country to say, okay, we promise to beef up the capacity there to a full brigade size. This is a great effort. We're talking about 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 soldiers for a brigade. It will, we're on the way to build up there. Germany is very active when it comes to filling the new regional plans and the new NATO strategy. You know, in Vilnius at the summit, NATO has dramatically shifted its approach given the new threats. And of course, has adopted new plans how to defend itself against a potential attack. But of course, you now need to fill these plans also with personnel. It's one thing to just write on paper, that's what we're going to do, but you need nations that are also committing their troops to the protection of the allied territory. Germany is also in the lead there and doing its part. Same is true for an EU element, which was newly installed, EU being a global actor, the rapid deployment capacity, where also Germany is committing to send the troops. So these are just a few elements to show you that how we feel we live up to this promise that we've given ourselves of a turning point also in our policy. I'll leave it with that, and I'm happy to engage further on the various points. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this presentation, which pinpointed the main elements, in your view, the Zeitenwende means up to this point. Let me pass on the floor to Mr. Christos Katsioulis, the Regional Director of Friedrich Ebert Stiftung in Vienna.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the invitation. I'll start pouring a bit of water in the very sweet wine we heard until now by explaining a little bit the challenges that are a part of this Zeitenwende as well. Because what the ambassador just described with so many very vivid and clear examples is an element of a strategy of Germany to rebuild trust and rebuild credibility. You mentioned that credibility was an issue at the very beginning of the war, and we all remember after the Russian unprovoked attack on Ukraine, too little, too late, and an uncertainty if the German government will really come and fulfill what it has promised in this speech of Olaf Scholz. And there are reasons for that. One reason is when you hear about German mobility, you think of something that the ambassador and I know both from the region we come from, very fast cars, Porsche and Mercedes. German politics is nothing like that. German politics is like a freight ship. If you want to turn it, it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. So what we see is really a changing here. And the changing goes into the party system. We are working closely with the party of the Social Democrats and the Chancellor. And you might have heard that there were people inside the party a bit critical on this Zeitenwende, on the new focus on military in Germany. And that has changed. We've seen it inside the parliamentary group. People start perceiving Russia clearly as a threat. They start agreeing to 2% of the GDP for the defense budget. All these measures were unthinkable before. And the quotes of Olaf Scholz that the minister and the ambassador made came from the so-called Bundeswehrtagung, which is a conference of the German Bundeswehr. And I think Olaf Scholz is the first chancellor for 15 years who visited this conference and talked there. This is a change. And to quote something from the new defense guidelines that were published yesterday, there's a word in there most Germans would have cringed if they read it 2 years ago, kriegstüchtig, which means you're able for war. And the Bundeswehr was never thought of as an army to fight. It was an army to be there, so we would never have any war. So this is a change taking place. And to add a third element here, the population is also changing. The perceptions, and we have made polls before the war and after the start of the war, are clearly changing. Russia is now perceived as a threat. That wasn't the case before. The defense budget is perceived as being necessary. The support of Ukraine is supported by more than 60% of the German population, but it still takes time. And it will take even more time in 2026, 2027, when these 100 billion of the Special Defense Fund will not be available anymore, because that means that we will spend 25 to 30 billion euros per year more on defense. And we don't know at the moment where this money will come from. It might come from the social budget. So the German population until now has felt some of the repercussions of the war, but not many of them, and not very hard ones. And when we have the discussion, will we spend on defense? Will we spend on social affairs? Then it will be the litmus test for this Zeitenwende. So it's very early stages. We have seen a lot of movement. We see that German credibility is building up again, that partners perceive us more and more as a part, an integral part of European security. But the ambassador also mentioned the backbone of European security, and I'll end with that because I'm very interested if Carlis perceives it as that. Would our partners, especially in the Baltics, in Poland, here in Romania, agree that this is a backbone they can rely on? I think we have still a little work to do so that they answer this enthusiastically and emphatically with a yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for nuancing and showing some hidden aspects that maybe we are not thinking of, coming from the German society, from the army, and so on and so forth. Let me now give the floor to Karlis Bukovskis, my homologue from Latvia, please.
Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. And if Christos added water, I'm going to add a lemon maybe to this, but not in order to cause any diplomatic strife or anything like this. From the Baltic perspective, as I was asked to comment on the Baltic perspective on the German Zeitenwende, then the short answer would be that if you want peace, prepare for war. But why at snail's pace? And that has been the issue after the announcement of the Zeitenwende last year, 3 days after the Russian accelerated attack on Ukraine, full-scale attack on Ukraine. And then we have moments of prolonged periods of inactivity, of discussions, which of course some people in the Baltic states, including on the highest political level, were not understanding fully what's going on, why is it happening. In this situation, Zeitenwende was absolutely welcomed in the Baltic states, because in this case it showed that there's a clear understanding in Germany finally as well who and what Russia is. So in this case that was of course very important. But then came the disappointment with the Leopards and deliveries of the weapons and discussions, domestic discussions in Germany, because in the Baltic states for us this was an immediate necessity. That we saw it just exactly like the Ukrainians. This is an immediate necessity. They need weapons. Yes, they need weapons. We were supplying our weapons at one point, basically emptying all of our, well, not that big, but still existing military capacities. And then came the new hope this year, of course, with the announcement of the brigade, increase from a battalion to a brigade scale of participation of Germans in the forward presence group in Lithuania. And that, of course, has to be implemented in 2026, well, finished until 2028. And that's a new hope. This is actually the question which has been constantly there. One thing is announcing Zeitenwende, the other thing is that where are the boots on the ground? That literally has been the phrase which has been used. It's a historical change not only for Germany, it's also a historical change for in the mindset also for the Baltic countries, right? It goes both ways. And so it has been somewhat this emotional roller coaster, if I may say. And the idea is, of course, that in modern history, if you look at the Baltic attitudes towards Germany, or Germany's attitudes towards the Baltic states, then it hasn't been always, as clear and one-sided and unanimous as we are used to think and look, for instance, at the United States of America. In the Baltic case, United States of America absolutely is a strategic partner, military, politically. Germany is economically. That is also true, and this is essential. But for Germany to take the place of the United States, it's not necessarily on our primarily agenda. We have to see first and how the situation is developing. Because the reason is very simple, because if you look back at the different chancellors, then Kohl was rather ambiguous, but pro-Baltic. Baltic independence and Baltic withdrawal of the Russian troops, and also kind of our membership in the European Union and NATO. Then came Schröder, which of course was pro-Kremlin, and for us was, that was a tricky moment, and I believe also in Germany he's still considered a very tricky moment, well, even now. And then came Merkel with vague but generally pro-Baltic approach, in spite of the fact that there were always this deals with Russia and trying to understand Russia, and there were complications in the form of Nord Stream, for instance, which we always saw as a problematic moment, but Germany kept pushing until basically Scholz abolished this. And Scholz's position now currently aligns with the Baltic position, aligns with the US position largely, but because of this history, and also because of, well, very unfortunate history between Russia and Germany in history in general, and older history, well, there is this small devil sitting and whispering that, yeah, good, Germans are with us, but 100%? Can we rely on that? Can we trust that? 95%? Yes, absolutely. But those 5%, this grain of small distrust because of this indecisiveness and mixed signals that have been coming out, of course, is causing this natural sentiment of, well, yes, Germans are with us. Yes, yes. Yes, that's basically, I'm trying to emotionally show you how this general understanding is. And to finalize, Minister Pistorius has been literally rallying German population, right? If in this case, if you want to avoid war, you have to start preparing for war. And this, of course, goes along with our understanding how Russia should be treated unfortunately, at this moment in history, because this is the Kremlin's policies. These are the policies that they have chosen, violent and which lead to immodern foreign and security policy, and violence that is pushing them and marginalizing them in the international community and in world's history as well. But in this case, that's the most important element in this case. And to finish this, I'm going to finish with a Russian saying, which I'm kind of translating this, is that the one who safeguards himself is also safeguarded by God. That's a Russian saying. And I think to a large extent, this is a mentality that exists in the Baltic states very strongly nowadays. And I think it should also still be increased in case of Germany. This is somewhat, should be the underlying idea of the Zeitenwende. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your view, which is kind of at the end of a continuum. I started with empathy, and then it went into a little bit of distrust there. So let me first of all, we have a participant who would like to ask a question coming from London, from King's College.
The ambassador for his characteristically polished, comprehensive presentation. But can I follow this theme of sympathetic skepticism? If the rest of Europe is somewhat questioning whether it is possible to believe in Germany now as the backbone of European deterrence, what would be the checklist of tests for this? Why, for example, was the Eurofighter not delivered earlier? Why does Germany not agree, as I understand it, to provide Taurus long-range missiles? And why has the word Schulzing, which is connected with my own name, so I'm quite interested, become, as I understand it in German, a synonym for equivocation and delay?
Thank you. I think when it comes to the mistrust that we've sort of heard, this 5% of can we really rely on Germany, or the terms you refer to, I think one element, allow me to say, I think Germany being the biggest country in the EU and the economically strongest country will always be eyed a bit differently than other countries. I think a lot of countries, many countries have done much less, but nobody would really take this up with them, right? So Germany being always eyed particularly close has a lot of responsibility. We want to live up to that. So whatever I say, whatever we say, will obviously not do away with whatever mistrust or skepticism might still be there. It's the deeds that in the end will show how reliable Germany is. I'm very optimistic that we will show that we are reliable and trustworthy. Christos has rightly phrased that German politics might be not a speedboat, but more a freight tanker, sort of taking a long time to shift. But once it's on track, that's the other part of a tanker, it just will continuously to go that direction. So I believe the question, the litmus test will be sort of later on. If we meet again in 5 years, we can then again talk whether Germany has lived up to its reputation. But again, I feel that we have at least the feeling that there has been a continuous shift in perception of Germany from the beginning of the war, where Germany was indeed slow in building up its military capacity, to where we are right now. The most relevant feedback we get from our perspective is the one from our Ukrainian partners and friends, because they are the ones fighting the war. So there has been a dramatic or very significant shift in skepticism and not being happy with Germany, to Germany now being acknowledged as a key partner and supporter. So this is always, something where we feel, okay, I think we're on a good track. There are many aspects one has to consider when taking a political decision about war and peace. And I think this is in particularly true for Germany, having the brutal and bloody history. Germany has sort of spread war for the number of times. So I think it's first of all, a positive note that Germany, after the Second World War, has decided to never again, and to let's always be very, very hesitant when it comes to being militarily active. Let's concentrate on the economy. Let's concentrate on humanitarian aid, development aid. So now, of course, there has been a shift, and there must have been a shift because of the situation that we are facing. But this might be a bit of an explanation why we are not always at the forefront of saying, let's go in and let's do this or that. The communication is a second angle. I think there are other political leaders that managed during the war in a, I dare say, fascinating way to prove themselves to be the best and the strongest supporters of Ukraine, while if you look at numbers, well, maybe it wasn't that much. While maybe for Germany it was a tiny bit the different way around, right? That Scholz is not the one, Chancellor Scholz is not a person who stands up and rocks the stage. He's sort of concentrates on what can I do. And things take a while in Germany, yes, that's true, but I have a slightly different take on that, on the question of has this been something to criticize, or is it a phenomenon, a track that just, you know, things are taking time, and we are where we are right now, and that has to be appreciated. But thanks for your openness in this regard.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. So we need to look at deeds, not at words. And this is a big contrast between Germany and our eastern neighbors, Russia, who are playing with words and playing with minds and playing with ideas and with disinformation, so on and so forth. So accent on deeds is really refreshing in an environment full of words and other deceiving things. So we have another distinguished participant who would like to ask a question, please.
Good evening, distinguished panelists. It is obvious that Germany is becoming again one of the most important security actors in the world. Is the second military provider for Ukraine after the United States of America. Is the number one from Europe, long before United Kingdom. Historically speaking, Germany was always interested in its eastern vicinity. We all maybe know what is Ostopolitik. Additionally, I noticed that Germany increased military exports to Israel. The figures are 10 times greater than the ones from 2022. And I think we both agreed yesterday, Mr. Ambassador, when we talked about Elie Wiesel's study tour, that Europe must support Israel in their fight against Hamas, because terrorism and that anti-Semitism are like cancer. Now I want to come back to the wider Black Sea region, and I will address you the question. Ukraine has 7 neighbors. 2 of them are hostile, Russia and Belarus. One of them, Hungary, is somewhere between hostile and neutral. And I think Slovakia entered in the same boat. Because we saw Prime Minister Fico stopped the military aid for Ukraine. Now there are 3 more neighbors, Poland, which regionally speaking is as important for Ukraine as is the United States in the international context. After we have Moldova and Romania. Both Moldova and Romania have a presidential election in 2024. Romania has also a legislative election. US has a presidential election in 2024. If I'm looking on the figures in the German politics, I see Alternative für Deutschland becoming the second strongest party in Germany. I don't know if it is right or not. They are somewhere at 20%. Compared to a population of 80 million people, 20% is like 16 million, almost the whole population of Romania, which is terrifying. And I want to ask you, what do you think is the worst case scenario for 2024?
Let me jump in just to save a little bit, Ambassador here. I said that I'm on the positive side of the story this afternoon, and I'd like you had actually a lot of questions included in one question. So you mentioned also the role of the Germany in relation with an extended Black Sea region, in relation with Ukraine and others, and I will refer to this primarily. So I will let the hard part for you, Ambassador, sorry. Actually, I said in my initial remarks how important Zeitenwende changed and adapted the German defense and security. And I have to add one more thing, that Zeitenwende helped narrowing down the threat perception between how we in the East and Germany saw the threats coming from the East. So I think this is an exceptional thing that Zeitenwende did. Moreover, Zeitenwende acknowledged very clearly that the threat of the conventional war in Europe is very much real. So again, comparing Germany 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, I don't know, and taking Germany today, this is a huge, we have to see, we have to acknowledge a huge difference. And I said that there are still persistent questions. 2%. 2% for defense is exceptional. But you know that I will play, you know, no, I just want to recall you that in a wider effort to transform European defense, 2% may not suffice. You know that in NATO, our leaders took the decision very recently that 2% is the lower limit right now today, because defense is very, very much important. Deterrence and defense, yes. The contribution in Lithuania, the contribution in Slovakia to the Belter Group, the contribution to the air policing in Romania, impressing changes, but I still think these are not equaling German potential. So there are a lot of things to do. And the Black Sea, coming back to the Black Sea, because, you know, I cannot but to refer to the Black Sea. Romania would like to see a more ambitious language in the fundamental documents that I have referred to in Berlin to the Black Sea. And we believe that in assuming this special responsibility for European security, Germany cannot omit, cannot neglect, cannot be focused more on the security situation in the Black Sea, generally speaking. And you mentioned a couple of times here the importance of finally equipping Bundeswehr appropriately. And the issue with the defense budget, yes, we are talking about an important amount of funds, but again, 2% may not suffice for the potential that Germany has. In relation with Ukraine, I cannot but to say once more, and you said yourself, how important Germany's commitment towards Ukraine is. It's absolutely fabulous. And I would like to say 1 minute more how important Germany is, because, you know, I said I'm very positive this afternoon, advocating Germany's role, how important Germany's role is in different initiatives in defense and security. You have mentioned European rapid deployment capacity. I will mention European Sky Shield. I will mention framework nation concept, and I could continue. So I think we are on a good track. But we would like to see more German commitment towards the eastern flank, towards the Black Sea, and of course, towards Ukraine.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Let me just address an answer to the final question of our participant. It's impossible for an ambassador to make comments about the domestic affairs and about elections. So, in a sense, I think that Deputy Minister kind of diplomatically intervened, not only to answer to His Excellency, but also to answer to you. But now I made it explicit. So let me say that we have about 10 minutes left. That clock is a little bit misleading. And I just wanted, I will give you the floor just to say that we focused very much on Germany and of what this means as such, this Zeitenwende, this turning point. But I think we should also answer the question, what will this mean for the European Union? And because Deputy Minister approached the issue of the Black Sea, we have to see that as long as we have the candidacy of Ukraine with the and of Moldova with the prospect of beginning negotiations with the new status of candidacy, of course, to be finally approved in the Council. Now the Black Sea is becoming a European Union issue. So we need to think about that, and if you want to comment later on, but then let me give the floor to Mr. Katsoulis.
Thank you very much, Liliana. A very short answer to the worst case scenario is a Donald Trump victory. And on the AfD, let me be clear on that. I think the AfD is, in European terms, nothing specific. We all have our populist parties. And it's a sign for the challenges Germany is facing at the moment. We had kind of cushioned the German population from most of the crises in the past years. And right now, it's a test of resilience. And we will have a part of the society, 20%, 15%, 25%, we will see in the coming elections, that will vote for populists offering them easy solutions. We're going back to the past, having the old Russian-German relations, so on and so forth. But there's no majority for that. So we will see the resilience of Germany tested, and we will also see the rest of the resilience in Europe tested in the elections next year. And we need to make the case for the changes that we're doing right now. And that is Scholz doing, and I disagree fundamentally with the Scholzing point, because Timothy Garton Ash invented that word. We don't use it in Germany. But the point is, if you want to take Germans on board, you don't make rash decisions. And that's why he proceeds so very slowly from an outside point of view. Thank you.
Thank you. Karlis Bukowski.
Yes. Also, very shortly on the question, worst case scenario for 2024, omitting all the violence and everything else that could be the worst case scenarios, and speaking only about the elections. Donald Trump, of course, yes, but kind of history shows that Trump won, Trump period won. We saw the checks and balances in the U.S. being in place, so I'm kind of hoping that then, in case of that, then also the checks and balances is going to work for the second term, if he gets elected. But I think one more election which was forgotten, and I think that would cause an absolute chaos if Russia suddenly meddles in European Parliament elections. It hasn't been doing so far, somewhat symbolizing that European Parliament is not seen as that important, but actually European Parliament is pretty much important. If we look at the co-decision-making procedures, with 80% of the decision made there, with the declarations on foreign policy, with the support or this and that policy, and also because of the Spitzenkandidaten. So it's actually one of those things which I think we haven't been fully thinking through, that elections and governments established, uneasy governments established in the European Union countries or in partner countries, we tend to learn how to live with that. But it would be quite a surprising moment if we suddenly would have a European Parliament which is suddenly anti-Ukrainian or anti-European or somewhat very, very different what it is now, because that would have a downward spiral in my mind quite a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much for pointing this out. So let me offer the floor to Ambassador Gebauer to make comments about what was said so far, and particularly on Germany-EU, if you can comment.
Yes.
Zeitenwende in the European Union.
In the EU, I think one element of this Zeitenwende of what we see as a new Russian threat, of course, is the better understanding to close the ranks, meaning enlargement. I think this has been seen, Germany has been supportive of enlargement in general anyhow, but I think overall in the European Union it's a much stronger support to fill the gaps that is the Western Balkans and as well as the Eastern Partnership countries, the association trio. So in that sense, we have taken important steps, but at the same time, and that's just one aspect I want to highlight this point, we have come to a better understanding in the EU in general. I think that just enlarging will not do the trick. It might just weaken the EU. So we must make ourselves stronger in our decision-making procedures, in our internal structures, and there are a number of debates going on right now, which is very important because we have to be ready. Just enlarging will not help us any. It will do damage if we are not able to adapt our way of moving ahead in the EU. A number of great ideas on the table. I think this is where we need to work together in the EU as well. But just that maybe on the EU point, given the limited time, I'll pass the floor back. And
well, thank you very much for your comments. I will kind of make reference a little bit, just 2 minutes, to what was said today about the importance of Germany, of the European Union, and of us allies, NATO allies, not only to focus laser-wise, but kind of looking a little bit looking at the bigger picture. And from this viewpoint, I think that leadership is needed in European Union. Leadership is needed to coordinate enlargement not only eastwards, but also to the Balkans. And that might be as big a challenge as eastwards. So I trust and I hope that Germany will play a leading role in this process of the European Union reshaping itself, because we cannot go further without being reshaped, and reshaped in a consensus way. And we know that we have enemies who are trying to erode this consensus, and they have means, they built means during the years that they are trying to erode our societies from within. So I hope and I trust. Please.
Maybe if I can quickly take up what you said for a bit of a general remark. Again, I think it's natural for Germany, being the biggest EU country, to have to raise the most expectations, and it is right, and we want to live up to them. But we won't be successful unless we all work together. What I see in the recent years, I dare say, is a tendency of a number of EU partners and/or allies to sort of tend to block things, because of course if you have the need for an unanimous vote, you can always raise your hand. Countries often make use of these veto possibilities for very bilateral or national reasons. And it's a very effective tool. It seems to be a very effective tool because you annoy everybody else, and if you can't move ahead, you will always get something out of it. This is the recipe for destruction of all alliances and unions. And I can only sort of, if I have one ask as a German ambassador here when it comes to European expectations vis-à-vis Germany, so turning around German expectations to Europe, let's leave that aside. Let's concentrate on finding compromises and working together, because we will again kill all alliances and unions if we continue to block one another. Romania is a shining example from a German perspective for doing it always in a very constructive way. Romania is never blocking anything. Romania is never boycotting anything or vetoing anything, always focusing on finding a compromise. And I think I said it before, just let me say again, we need more Romanias in the European Union to move ahead. So thanks for
Thank you
that.
very much. 10 seconds.
10 seconds. I think it's important, Germany, to mobilize, if you like, the other member states to join important initiatives in defense and security. And I see Germany together with France as the engines of the EU traveling towards more convergence, towards more integration in security and defense, because there are a lot of fields in which we need an European common answer. And you know what I'm talking about: cyber, space, military mobility, and so on. And by the way, we had in Berlin the NATO Cyber First Annual Conference. So thank you very
much for your intervention. Please, let's give a round of applause to this exceptional panel. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying with us. I myself and the entire team at the Aspen Institute Romania and the German Marshall Fund of the US, we are very pleased to see you today. In the afternoon, we all know it's so difficult to be able to be here for the entire day, but it's also pleasant at the same time, and we hope that you leave the forum with new ideas and inspiration for change. Before closing the program, I am so delighted to announce we will be hosting one more insightful conversation regarding the narratives of war and war of narratives, of course, approaching topics such as disinformation. And for this, I'm pleased to invite on stage Ms. Dana Deac, senior TV journalist in Romania, who will be leading this conversation and who will be talking also to some wonderful panelists abroad. And I leave it to Ms. Deac to introduce the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you. This is working. Thank you, Mirela. I would like to invite you to participate in our panel. I see friends here. Hello. Thank you. Hello. So we dedicate this panel to a subject as old as the world. And unfortunately, it is current and it does not have an end in near future. Today we are talking about narratives of war, war of narratives. I have the unique pleasure of introducing you to our esteemed panelists who will be sharing their experiences, their perspectives on the subject. Joining us remotely is Volodymyr Yermolenko, a philosopher, journalist, and senior lecturer at the National University of Kyiv Mohyla Academy. Thank you, Volodymyr. We are honored to have his valuable insights. And now I would like to invite on the stage with me Alexander Iskandarian. He's a political scientist and the director of the Caucasus Institute. To join me on the stage, Alexander brings comprehensive political experience in the Caucasus region and beyond, adding a crucial, please sit down, perspective to our discussion. I invite now Radu Hosu, a war correspondent, volunteer, and philanthropist from Romania. Radu was awarded the Medal of Merit on behalf of the Ukrainian people by President Volodymyr Zelensky. Please sit down, Radu. Thank you. We are grateful that you are here with us. Radu returned yesterday from Ukraine, and I am very happy to have him with us today. And now we are waiting to connect with Clarissa Ward, and maybe it will be a miracle during our conversation, and we'll see Clarissa also. So, our panel Narratives of War, War of Narratives will delve into the toxicity of discursive practices, social media and communication in the context of war narratives. We will explore several thought-provoking topics and questions, such as who emerges victorious in the war of narratives, how we can challenge the toxic nature of narratives, and how our narratives can be weaponized. The panel aims to bring together scholars, researchers, political philosophers, war correspondents, and civil society representatives to address these significant questions and bridge the gap between academia and the narrators of armed conflicts. I would like to begin asking Volodymyr Yermolenko, to explore with us a question that I have, and I'm sure that you have also. How we can address the toxicity of narratives, particularly considering the ongoing war in Ukraine. Please, Volodymyr.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you, colleagues. It's a pleasure to be with you, to talk to you. Unfortunately, not physically present, but at least online. And look, I do think that the title of the panel is very, very interesting and very correct, because in the past years, I had the impression that all the discussion about, in the Western world, all the discussion about the information space was reduced to the discussion about fake news and disinformation. And I was always struggling with this, saying that, look, the goal of the propaganda, the goal of the information warfare is not to deceive, but to destroy. To destroy the people, to destroy identities, to destroy faith, to destroy trust. And I do think this is an important factor, because when you analyze, for example, the Russian propaganda with regard to both Ukraine and also European Union or wider world, you will see the recurrent pattern, and this pattern is an attempt to demoralize and to see distrust between citizens and other citizens, between citizens and governments, between civil society and authorities, etc., etc. And these tactics, of course, it implies disinformation. Of course, it implies fake news. So, of course, it implies lies. But it also implies the parts of the reality. It also implies partial truth. And the key thing about the information warfare is not that it is either pure lies or not pure lies. It's about the mixture, how you put, how you combine certain elements where there are true elements or false elements into precisely a narrative, a story. And the key thing about all this, I think, is to destroy the enemy mentally, or destroy the trust towards somebody that you consider an enemy from the other people. And if you look at the way how Russia was actually preparing this, both the war that they started in 2014 and the big-scale invasion which started in 2022, it was preceded by a very long narratives, very long storytelling, very long propaganda, in which the key goal was to dehumanize Ukrainians, to say that either they do not exist as a nation or they do not have a right to exist because they are Nazis, because they are killers, because they don't have any political history or whatever else. And I think this is a very important moment, very important element, because before you start killing people physically, you start killing people mentally. And for example, we travel a lot in Ukraine. We go to the deoccupied territories, liberated territories. We go to the frontline areas, very close to the Russian troops, very close to the Russian border. And all the time, we're trying to talk to people who communicated with the Russian soldiers and trying to understand what actually was in mind of these soldiers. And there is a repetitive element in this. And the repetitive element is that, they always ask usual Ukrainian peasants where the Nazis are. Show us the Nazis. Where are the Nazis? So they came convinced that the country is somehow penetrated with these imaginary Nazis, and therefore they will be killing them, and they would rather kill as many people as possible, thinking that there will be Nazis among them. And I think this is a very, very important point. You ask about toxicity, and probably we will discuss this in this panel. I think that basically the most toxic thing about propaganda, about information warfare, is that it leads to real war. It leads to hatred, and it leads to real killing.
Thank you, Volodymyr. Talking about Ukraine, I told you Radu returned yesterday from Ukraine. He's, I can say, a new face of journalism, of war journalism. Radu has employed live war narratives to provide a multi-perspective view of conflict. And I would like to ask Radu about credibility. How do you build credibility when you are writing or talking about war in Ukraine?
Good evening or good day. Sorry for my outfit. I'm coming from war. Those were the only outfits that I have out there. So the problem, the question is, how do you manage to create credibility in these new...
In writing war narratives.
In war narratives, when you have new media, where I express my my narratives of war, of Ukrainian-Russian war. So you build trust by looking at the facts. That means you have to inform yourself from from both sides. This is one of the things that I think is very important. That's why, at least for myself in Romania, I never say that I am a journalist. Because journalists are people that have degrees in journalism, they have a lot of experience. I'm a political consultant in my background. So I started to write about the Ukrainian war because it was interesting for people on the social media. And I managed to create condensed information, specially created for new media. But that information was created from two sides. I had to inform myself from the side of Russian, what they are saying about the front lines, what's happening on the front lines, and from the Ukrainian, and put them face to face and just try to, in the first days where it was very hard to understand which one is lying or which one is telling the truth, and I had to present them both. So in time, you create this narrative of, you create the trust when what you say, it shows after that on the front line a few days later, and your information, what is presented by yourself, it is factual. So it is important to be factual. Yes, I do have a part on what I'm doing that is personal. So basically, I am biased towards Ukraine. You can see me, I have the Ukrainian flag here. So yes, I am biased towards Ukraine, for sure. But the factual base, you don't have to wait. You don't have to neglect it. That's one thing. Another thing is that in new media, anybody could be trustworthy. That's the problem with new media. So I consider myself lucky that I am trustworthy in this field, but that doesn't mean that anybody should be trusted in this field.
How many followers do you have?
I have 70,000 followers on Facebook, 58,000, almost 60,000 on Twitter. But basically on Twitter, I have audiences that go from 200,000 to millions.
And you raise money for the Ukrainian people? How much money?
I raised in Romania. I am the biggest individual donor from Romania to Ukraine, more than 600,000 euros.
So you have credibility.
Basically, without credibility, this wouldn't happen, because people are donating in my personal account. That means that there was credibility. From about 60,000 people back then that I had followers, 10,000 of them donated. That's a lot. That's a lot of people that got engaged. Even if we look at social polls, sociological polls about who is engaged in any activity, social and civil activity, I have a higher rate of engagement on my Facebook page and on my Twitter account. That means that, yeah, I gathered some credibility, but that's because of the facts. You have to bring up the facts. Only war narratives that you would like to impress your audience with, that won't last.
We'll come back to this fact-checking. I would like to ask Alexander Iskandarian, because he's with us today, not only as a political scientist. How many wars do you have in your boots, Alexander?
Is it on? A lot. From Philippines to Bosnia. I've been in maybe all post-Soviet wars. I mean, Tajikistan, Chechnya, Karabakh War, Abkhazia, Ossetia, Transnistria, by the way, and some post-communist as well. I've been in Bosnia.
Do you? I don't know how to say. Do you see any difference between narratives, war narratives, now and then?
Absolutely, yeah.
What kind of differences?
Generally, I think that the problem is much more wider than just propaganda, just classical propaganda. Given the time pressures, maybe I just propose a few talking points relevant to the topic. My first point is that we no longer understand the main parameters of global politics. Mm-hmm. The world order, as we know, is disintegrating at such breakneck speed that turbulence has become the norm. Turbulence is the norm now. In the torrent of events, it's hard to see the overall picture. As one tries to keep track of the information flow, one hardly has time to focus on the meaning of the ongoing changes. Meanwhile, for example, the Near East, Russia, post-Soviet world, and even the international community have become entirely new entities in the last 5 years, 10 years. Accordingly, my second talking point is that the modern information wars are no longer, it's a kind of answer to your question, directed at real targets, but at mythical one, I would say. In classic setting, the information wars that accompany the real-life wars and conflict targets particular actors and groups that are perceived as hostile, or as allies, or as potential mediators, and so on. At the moment, no one understands what the actors of the New World Order really are. So there is no clarity about their loyalty, their interest, or their red lines. That means that the information wars are waged against no one and is a result more or less against everyone. That's an answer to another question who you asked. And all this takes to my point 3. Once you are out of fight, everyone, toxicity becomes the goal rather than just a means or a side effect of information war. Indeed, we can see a growing demand for toxicity in the societies. Social networks amplify this toxicity by devaluating expert knowledge and knowledge in general, I would say, putting amateurs on the same shelf with professionals, promoting conspiracy theories, charismatic authority, and simplistic visions. Toxicity thrives in this environment. So my fourth and last talking point is that the scholars need to become providers of professional knowledge to the political elites and societies at large. Knowledge and understanding are the only known antidotes to toxicity. fixing the situation is a challenge to journalists and politicians as well as the scholarly community. Black and white narratives are easier to produce. It's honestly answering the what question rather than the focus on the why. But arguably the overall devaluation of knowledge and expertise may well be a major cause as well as an effect of the ongoing disintegration of the order.
I would like to return to Volodymyr Yermolenko and to put the question in a context. In recent years, the invasion of Ukraine has raised concerns, as he said already, about Russia's information warfare and its influence on public opinion. But are war narratives being used as efficient brainwashing tools? You talked about killing mentally people, but could be war narratives an efficient brainwashing tools? Or can the internet, this is the second question, can the internet provide a platform for countering these narratives in illiberal regimes or conflict zones? What do you think, Volodymyr?
Well, I think that it's definitely, when we're talking about the new authoritarian regimes or totalitarian regimes such as Putin's Russia, it's clearly that the war is finally became a kind of a national idea. And it's clearly that, well, it started well before, obviously well before even the war of 2014. I think that idea, which was in the Russian mind, that the Soviet Union lost the Cold War and therefore it should take a revenge for this loss and prepare for the revenge and use what people in Russia, what Russian leaders perceived as the Western war against Soviet Union, information war against Soviet Union, which was, I think, not the case, but meaning that, you use media, you create state-owned media, which penetrate the Western societies, such as Russia Today or Sputnik, and then you try to deconstruct the trust of the societies, inside these societies, of citizens towards the governments or citizens towards citizens, as I told already. And the second thing is, of course, the mythology of the Second World War. And this Russian slogan, which is very important, which we tracked, of course, well before the actual war. The slogan is, "We can repeat." We can repeat, meaning that we can repeat 1945. And I think this image of 1945 as a kind of the image of the Soviet victory, which was interpreted as only Soviet victory, as if the Americans were not helping Soviet Union, as if, and only Russian victory, as if no other nationalities were engaged in this war, and forgetting absolutely that if we take the former Soviet republics, then it is rather Ukraine and Belarus that suffered the most from the Second World War than Russia proper. But this image was created, this mythology, which is sometimes has its name, it's called Победобесие, meaning the demonizing victory. And I think, therefore, in a very peculiar way, people in Russia have become brainwashed. But the question is whether they really wanted to be brainwashed, whether it was really the anchor of their identity because of certain probably problems in their societies, in the economy, in the way how they feel inside their societies, the problems of violence inside the Russian society. And therefore this idea that, Russia is based upon this victory of 1945, and it can repeat this victory, and that it will look at the future as if the future would be just a repetition of the past, as if it is still an ongoing war against quote-unquote Nazism. I think that really is the big foundation of what happened late of what happened in 2014 and what happened earlier in Georgia with Russian invasion of Georgia in 2008, and then Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Now, the question is what is happening now and what will happen now, because as if the Russian society is increasingly militarizing and increasingly posing this war and showing this war as the big war against NATO, not Ukraine, against NATO, against America, against Europe, against the West. So it's kind of this idea of the war becomes the national idea and just penetrates the whole discourse. And I think this is very dangerous. We really entered, I would disagree with Alexander that we see the world as very complex and in a fog and nothing is clear. I think we can really talk about some very clear trends. And the clear trend, one of the clear trends is that democracies are retreating and the authoritarianisms are on the rise, are attacking, offending in very different ways. And democracies are increasingly in this position of defense. But these autocracies like Russia, they really form their whole identity on the idea of the war. And this is very important for us to understand. As to your second question, I will be brief. I think that internet, sometimes people blame technologies like, okay, we are toxic on Twitter and that's because of Twitter or Twitter algorithm, or people spread hate speech on Facebook and this is the problem of big platforms, etc. Well, I do think that these multinationals should have their, of course, policies, and there is a lot of talk about this. But it's like this Greek word pharmakon, which can mean both the poison or toxicity and the remedy. There are lots of things that can be done with the help of social media, good things. And there are lots of bad things that can be done. And I think your question against toxicity, I think it's a very interesting question, because it's a question, is not a question how we refer the information we receive to the reality. It's a very important question too, the fact-checking, etc. But it's a question how we refer the information we receive to ourselves. Asking ourselves whether, frankly speaking, we become better persons when we watch this television, or we become worse persons. We become more responsible, less responsible. We become more infiltrated with hatred or more infiltrated with empathy. And I do think that technologies matter, social networks matter, but it's not a cause. You can use it in both ways. You can use it as propaganda, you can use it as counter-propaganda, you can use it for mythology creating, or you can use it for critical thinking.
Thank you, Volodymyr. Talking about internet, Radu, as I told to the audience that you are the new face of world correspondence, journalism, this is it. You have Night Summary, is the name of live
yeah, that's the name of my posts. My posts
Night
on
Summaries.
Facebook, yeah,
okay.
and Twitter.
Tell us, you said that it's tough and difficult to rely on sources. You should check, verify everything. People around you. But did you use AI to check the facts?
First of all, I'm not a journalist.
Yeah, I understand.
This is very important.
So you represent the new face of war correspondence. It's a sort of new journalism.
Why am I bringing this up? Because I think it's very, very important for people to still. When they have something, when they need to choose something, politically, socially, they have to rely on verified and trustworthy media. I know that a lot of people, the new trend is now to hate mass media because they are all liars, or, you know, all this narrative that it's coming from. The war,
yeah, but mainstream media has, I'm sorry, mainstream media has checkers. Huge departments for verifying facts.
But the people don't know this.
Using AI
masses don't know this. They think that a guy on Facebook it's more reliable than a whole, editorial
team
room.
Yeah.
From trustworthy mainstream media. So I think this is the first thing. It's very, very important that when we make decisions...
Have you ever used AI?
No, I haven't used. No. And probably in this war, at least, I will never use it, because you can use AI, if I may, to get an input, and you get an output based on your input. So if you're biased, you'll get a biased output. So if I say Ukraine has on Kherson 20 tank brigades, the AI will give me the check that, okay, that means Ukrainians will cross the Dnieper River very fast, because it knows that the Russians have only 4 brigades on the other side. But in reality, I gave it the wrong input. So, and after that, I can take out that output, post it on social media, and say, look, this is the truth. And it's created by math, right? Because AI is math.
What you say is that you can feed AI with fake news.
Absolutely. Okay. And you will produce fake news after that.
Okay, I understand. Alexander, it's a very difficult period of time. This weekend, I've read a lot of newspapers or news sites. In this weekend, a lot of huge cities in Europe will be plenty of people protesting against a war. We are talking with you also about how political narratives can change or alter identities or alter the course of a war. What do you think about next weekend? It's about toxicity. This is democracy. We can stop these meetings. They are, I don't know, they are using the freedom of speech is okay to protest against a party. But how can we detoxify the narratives? Because most of them, not every meeting, will be a result of a war of narratives. Yeah? And we are talking about detoxifying, not about stopping meetings or protesters to protest against a party.
But you asked the question and you answered that. Or you should have censorship, just to close information.
But it's not democratic.
But it's not democratic. If it is democratic and you have freedom of media, you will have narratives of war, you will have fake information, you will have all this stuff. It is, and you wouldn't be able to close it, to censor it. So you need to live with that. I remember, it was after the beginning of the war in Ukraine, Russian-Ukrainian war. It was BBC article. They did an interview with an ordinary person from Narva town, which is in Estonia, at the border with Russia. This town is Russian populated, so people in Narva, they are Russian speakers. An interview was with this guy. I even remember his name. His name was Ivan. Middle-aged, it was a picture of a middle-aged citizen, maybe of Estonia, living there. Ivan did not believe to Ukrainian war. He did not believe that Ukrainian war exists.
There are plenty of Ivans.
They tried to understand what's going on, what's his sources. It was extremely interesting. He doesn't know any language. He speaks just Russian. He doesn't speak Estonian as well. He does know English, etc. So before last month, he took his information from Russian TV. He did not use internet. Now, after the beginning of war, they cut it Russian TV. He cannot understand Estonian, so he don't have information at all, and he does not believe. So people need information. They want to listen. Radu said that he is biased. I understand that he is biased on Ukrainian side. So somebody will listen him just because of that. But some other person will find another person which is pro-Russian biased and will listen that media or that Facebook or I don't know, information from that source. People want to listen what they want to listen. How to work with that? It's about journalism. It's about professionalization. It's about education. It's about, as you said, degrees. Degrees not like paper, but degree like a symbol of something professional in this sphere. It's about neutrality. It's about checking, etc. This is culture of media, which is not easy to build, which is not easy. I don't give an easy answer to the question, but it's only way if you live in democratic society.
Yeah, you're right. I think Clarissa is with us now. I saw her on the screen. Hi, Clarissa. Thank you for being with us. Clarissa, if it is necessary, is CNN's chief international correspondent and highly acclaimed war journalist. I would like to present her book because her book is wonderful on all fronts, the education of a journalist. The book garnered widespread praise, and not only because of the book, but she is one of the best contemporary war journalists. Clarissa, we are grateful for having you with us virtually, and because the time is a little bit merciful less with us. I would like to ask you about writing narratives. You have, at least for 2 decades, a lot of wars. You had your boots on the ground of a lot of wars. Do you change your writing now than 10 years ago? We don't...
Unmute myself.
Okay.
This isn't my first time doing this, although you wouldn't know. First of all, I profusely apologize if I'm late. I thought this was beginning in 15 minutes, so please accept my profuse apologies, and thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this. I think, and I hope very much that my writing has changed a lot over the course of doing this for nearly 20 years. I think that there is absolutely no replacement for experience in this job. And I often have young aspiring journalists calling me and asking me if they should go to journalism school. And I say, if you want to go to journalism school, then I think that's a great idea. However, the only real education for a journalist is to be on the ground and to be in situations where you can feel the full force of what's happening in front of you, but you can also appreciate and understand that as journalists, it is a myth to think of ourselves as completely impartial. We are bringing our own narratives to the table as well. And those narratives come from our gender, our religion, our nationality, our race, our education, our upbringing, and many different parts of our lives. that absolutely have an imprint on the way we see or approach any given story. And I would say, I can't say that it was about 10 years ago, but there is a point in one's career where you understand that total impartiality or total objectivity is something of a myth. And you may have heard from my colleague, Christiane Amanpour, her mantra, which essentially embraces this truism and says, be truthful, not neutral. And so I feel that part of the dilemma or the tightrope that we are walking at the moment as journalists is about understanding and accepting that we do bring our own biases and our own narratives to any given story. But at the same time, having enough self-discipline and restraint and curiosity to make sure that we don't just fall back on what might seem or feel like the easy or obvious narrative, that we do continue to probe, that we do continue to ask the hard questions, that we do continue to hold people in power accountable, whatever side they may be on. And that, I think, is a real challenge for us as journalists. And I think that challenge has been amplified to an incredible extent by the rise of social media. Because the kind of nuance I'm talking about, the kind of moment for pause and reflection and questioning and building up a better and bigger picture and giving a more coherent and nuanced viewpoint of a story, that has been completely washed out or drowned out by the noise of social media, which promises people something much more seductive. It promises them that in 30 to 40 seconds, I'm going to boil years of history and complexity into a short, pithy, hot take that's going to make you feel outraged and emboldened. It's going to make you feel like you know what you're talking about, and you're going to take that away, and I'm going to call it absolute truth, that thing. And there is no challenging that narrative. There is no discussion of both sides. There is no room for introspection or holding space for people with opposing viewpoints that maybe challenge the way we see or understand something. This sort of mentality that we have seen really proliferate on social media demands of us as journalists that we become activists. I can't tell you how many times I have been asked recently, why did you not condemn this? Why did you not denounce this? Why do you not call this by what I say it is? And I have to try to remind people that my job as a journalist is absolutely to shine a light on something and to give people as full a picture as I can of what is going on. But it is not my job to shout at people, you should be horrified by this, or this is terrorism, or this is heroism, or whatever it may be that I'm expected to extrapolate. My job as a journalist is to let you arrive at that conclusion for yourself, if that's the conclusion you're going to arrive at. And that distinction between journalism and activism has been eroded in a way that I think has frankly become very dangerous and has made it incredibly difficult as a journalist. I can't tell you how many times I've been told, you need to choose a narrative. You need to pick a narrative. What's your narrative on this? And I have to explain to people that ideally, as a journalist, I shouldn't really have a narrative. Sometimes it's inevitable if I'm covering one side of a war, and that's why news organizations have to have multiple people covering multiple sides of complex conflicts in order to give a more rounded out understanding of any given situation. But it's not our jobs as journalists to pick narratives. Sometimes you will have a war, such as the war in Ukraine, where it becomes very clear very quickly that there is an aggressor and a victim in this situation. There is a country that invaded illegally in contravention of international law, the sovereign territory of another country. It doesn't mean that we should engage in whataboutism and not call that invasion what it is or what it was. But it does mean that at the same time, we need to continue to ask the hard questions of what's going on in Ukraine, to ask the hard questions of what can be achieved at this stage by military means, and to ask the hard questions on behalf, for a US network of American taxpayers of what is happening with the tens of billions of dollars that have been given or pledged to Ukraine, and which increasingly in the US have become a source of political partisanship. So I don't know if that answers your question exactly, but I hope it kind of illuminates in some small way the incredibly difficult and dangerous terrain that I think we find ourselves in as journalists as we try to navigate the information space going forward. And that's without even thinking of the impact that AI will ultimately have on the way information is collected and disseminated as well. So it's not all doom and gloom, but it is, I feel, an inflection point for journalism. This is a really tense and in many ways painful and extremely challenging moment. And we have to make sure that we are able to meet the moment and to continue to really serve people and serve our readers and our viewers by continuing to do this work.
Clarissa, you offered narratives of remarkable depth and understanding. What is your secret?
It's a really easy secret. It's listening. And listening is another thing that we don't really like to do anymore. Again, if you go onto social media, nobody wants to listen. Everybody's an expert. Everybody suddenly knows everything about the world and wants to tell you, and not just tell you, but wag their finger in your face and shame you. And actually, if you really want to learn, if you really want to draw people out, and you really want to be let in to tell the stories of some of the most difficult and darkest times in people's lives, you have to come in with an openness and with a willingness, again, to put your narrative aside. How many times have I had to sit down with the Taliban or with militants in northern Syria, where as a Western woman, there's so much that I might struggle with on a personal level about treatment of women, education of girls, whatever it might be. If I want to hold that space with someone and really offer an insight into their world, I need to leave that to the side. And I need to come in with a spirit of openness, with a pledge to listen and to hear someone and to give them the space. And also, I believe personally, and maybe not everybody would say this, on a fundamental human level, to be able to hold that space with someone, hold that pain, empathize, open myself up to that experience, and be a human trying to connect with another human on that very simple level for just a moment, to allow for a shared moment of humanity.
Thank you very much. Now, because we have only 10 minutes to talk about, yes, we have already a question, please. Is anybody helping me with the mic? You have it there, okay.
Tamar Ginturashvili, Media Development Foundation. My question is to Volodymyr. The Kremlin intends to consolidate public opinion in so-called Ruski Mir around two main topics. This is common identity and shared history. Could you elaborate a little bit about the role of Russian Orthodox Church, which is forbidden in this war, and the role of educational institutions, because the version of Second World War you just described recently is in our textbooks. Do we need to revise these textbooks and tell the true story? Because most teachers in post-Soviet countries are teaching the same version of the history as we hear from the Kremlin. Thank you.
You want to, or Volodymyr, do you want to answer?
Yes, I
please,
can answer,
please.
or should we take other questions?
Yes.
It's up to you. I can answer. First, I think it's very important to understand for us the peculiar elements about Russian imperialism, Russian colonialism, which I stress all the time in my speeches, in my texts, is that the Russian imperialism, contrary to some other imperialisms, are trying to colonize the other, not by the idea of difference, but by the idea of sameness. So they're not saying that you are different from us, you're racially different, you are ethnically different, and you are lower than us. They are saying this as well, but what they are saying much more is that you are the same with us. You are Ukrainians are the same with us. There is no difference between us and you, and you don't have a right to be different. And I think this is the idea of this Ruski Mir that goes beyond the national boundaries, that goes beyond the differences of identities. And I think this is still not really properly understood, and not really properly described in the world. And therefore, the religious issues are, of course, very, very, very clear and very important here. So the Russian Orthodox Church in Ukraine, or as it's called, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Moscow Patriarchy, as we call it, has been for many years a kind of one of the most subtle ways of spreading the idea, for example, that Ukraine should not look westwards, that liberalism is bad, that all Ukrainian history is tied to Russia, that all ideas that are coming from the West are just Satanism, and etc., etc. And this shows how difficult, how complex the question of information wars and propaganda are, because they are not really reduced to the questions of media. They go far more deep. And I know this is also a question for Georgia as well. So the religious topic is very important in this respect. So what we should look at is not only social media, is not only mainstream media, is not only Putin's articles. We should look at the way how TV series are created and what messages they bring, the way how some organizations, as church organizations, are functioning, what the priests are telling to the people who come to the church, and this is really very important. Or the way how, I don't know, how comedy works in Russia, or how the pop music, what ideas pop music promote, because still Ukrainian young people are still, it's paradox and horrible paradox, but they still might be listening to the Russian rap, or they still might be going after Russian TikTokers. And this is, of course, a very, very difficult issue. And one thing I would like just to add, it's a very important topic when we talk about information, is the words we use. And I think this is one of the key things that we start thinking about when we're trying to be accurate towards reality. So, for example, when we use the concept of war in Ukraine or Ukrainian war, that concept is misleading for me, because we kind of omit the whole sense of this war. We omit the aggressor. We omit. We don't call, Nazi invasion of Poland the Polish War, right? Or the war in Poland. Or we don't call 1938 the Czechoslovakia War. Or we don't call the Prague 1968 the Prague crisis, right? The same way, for example, I'm also feeling kind of uncomfortable with the words like post-Soviet space. Because if we're talking about post-Soviet space, we kind of mean that, okay, the Soviet Union still exists, but in a different form. And there are many, many such things that I think our talk about the information should start really with very attentive listening to the words we are saying and to the meaning we use.
Thank you, Volodymyr. So listen to every party is very important, and understand then what is happening. Do you have a question? Yes, please.
Can you hear me? Oh, yeah. My question is maybe a little bit uncomfortable, but I kind of feel like I have to ask it because I'm a young student and I'm always wondering which kind of sources I can trust and not. And I also want to just ask questions about our own credibility in the Western media. And I hope it's fine if I ask you this question, Ms. Ward. Maybe you know what I'm talking about. It's not about the Ukrainian war, but the war between Israel and Hamas. And 1 month ago, there was this video published, which was described by Reuters, for example, as a fake. And you said it's important to distinguish between journalism and activism. And I would ask you maybe if you could give a statement about this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for asking. So for those of you in the audience who are not aware of this, this happened on October 8th. I had flown to Israel on October 7th to cover the Hamas attacks. And we were near the Gaza border. There was a heavy barrage of missiles. We were too far away from a shelter to manage to reach the shelter, so we had to take cover in a ditch. And so we took cover in the ditch, and we were going live on television as well. The barrage ended. I apologize to the viewers for the fact that I was sort of lying on my side, and I continued with the live shot and continued talking about the area we were in, which was the sort of epicenter, the beginning of the attack, where Hamas had first crossed the border and started killing people. About 1 day later, I was told by someone, do you have any response to this video of you that's gone viral? And I just thought it was video of us jumping into the ditch and taking cover. And then someone sent me a video, and what a satire account had done was to take out the natural audio from this incident and put a voiceover of a director at the CNN headquarters. So you don't hear the sounds of the rockets or anything. You just hear someone, because you can see my producer in the background was on the phone, and you just hear this person saying, now tell her to jump into the ditch, and tell her to look frightened, and tell her to, do this and do that. And I watched it and I was like, that's ludicrous. It's satire. It's maybe not the time for this kind of satire, but I didn't think twice about it because it was so ludicrous. This clip has been shared millions and millions of times. I have received so many death threats because of it that I have lost track. I had a woman on the airplane on my return from Egypt via Jordan to London who shouted that I was a murderer. I have been accosted by people screaming that I'm an actress, that I'm the responsible party for the deaths of Palestinian children because of my acting skills. And this, as a journalist, is an almost impossible thing to confront because you're talking about something that is completely fictitious. In fact, the person who created the clip actually put out a statement saying this was just intended as satire. This wasn't real. This is fake news, whatever you want to call it. But these things take on a life of their own. And it doesn't matter how many times Reuters or the New York Times or other well-established and respected news outlets say, or I say, or CNN says, this is a fake clip, this is not real, it wasn't even intended to look real, it came from a satire account. It takes on a life of its own, and it becomes incredibly dangerous. And it's been very frustrating for me because A, it's a distraction from the stories that we're trying to tell. I am not the story, and nor should I be the story. We can have a separate discussion about Western media coverage and narratives and all those things. But I, in a moment where I'm taking cover from rocket fire for 5 minutes and then continue doing what I was doing, should not be the story. And also, how can you argue with the idea of truth? I mean, when we are living in a world where reality doesn't even matter anymore, where your narrative is more important than the actual reality of a situation or of any given clip, then you know that you are facing a truly impossibly challenging environment as a journalist. Now, in this situation, CNN put out a statement, and I have tried to just get on with my job and do my work and tell the stories of the people who have been massacred, who are living under bombardment in Gaza, because that's my job. But yes, to answer your question, it makes it much more difficult. It's deeply unfortunate and potentially very dangerous.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's the time is running out. I'm so sorry. If you have a question, please. I don't want to frustrate you.
Thank you so much. My name is Stefan Cibian from the Bucharest Research Institute. I wanted to add a question exactly on this topic because I think it's very essential for the current context. We know fake news is very hard to face, and I think your story is amazing in showing exactly that. How would you evaluate our measures to combat it? And somehow there feels to be a huge imbalance between the assault we're under and what we're actually doing in response. So I'm curious how you see our, how serious we're taking this and whether what we're doing is enough, and if not, what could be done more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I think, honestly, the way I describe it is it's like playing whack-a-mole. I don't know if you ever played that game when you're a kid and you whack one thing and another pops up and then you whack that and another one. And you keep trying to whack down all the lies and all the fake clips and all the fake news, and you can't. You can't, because it's algorithmically reproducing at a rate that individuals cannot inherently keep up with. So clearly the tools that we need have to be technological tools, because as individuals, we can't combat this alone. And I think that technology companies have a really big part to play in this, of course. And I know that many of them, of course, are already trying to help navigate these spaces and keep spaces safe and put disclaimers on. And I will say, with regards to the fake clip about me, if you went on, I believe, Twitter or X as it's now called, you would see, if you shared the clip, underneath it would say, by the way, this is a satire clip, or it was like a little note from X. At the same time, Elon Musk himself shared the clip with 2 laughing emojis, right? So you have this strange push-pull between efforts being made by some parties and then efforts being made by others to the contrary. And so how do you get everybody on the same page to agree with how to meet these challenges and deal with them when we don't any longer really have the same idea of the possibility of a shared truth, or at least shared facts? because I think we can understand that truth can be subjective. Truth has many interpretations. Facts are just facts. Did it happen? Did it not happen? Is this a cell phone? Yes, it is. So I really hope that, governments and tech companies, and I know they are already undertaking this because it is going to be amplified exponentially with the rise of AI. You are going to see deep fakes proliferating every sort of space online. How are we going to create guardrails to protect, forget me, but protect consumers of information so that they have a sense that, okay, maybe I'm getting it from this outlet and this outlet is a little bit biased in this way or that way, but at least I know it's real. It happened. This is a person. This is what actually took place. And I'll be honest with you, it's a good question you ask. And in this moment, I am genuinely fearful that we do not yet have the tools to appropriately meet this moment and meet the challenges of this moment.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank our esteemed panelists for being with us today and opening new avenues for research. I believe that as Clarissa said, it's not only, tech companies' job, it is researchers or philosophers or academia it's a serious job to research and to find not solution but ways of dealing with this toxicity in narratives and especially in war narratives. Thank you all for being with us and thank you for the questions. I would like to invite Alina Inaech to close the event and to thank Aspen Institute and German Marshall Fund.
First of all, can we give a hand to this wonderful panel? Thank you, everybody, online and in person. Thank you, Dana, for the moderation. Actually, we enjoyed the panel so much that we decided that we are going to extend the forum with one more day. I'm kidding. No, we are actually closing it. But as we are going through this very, very intense 2 days, as we are trying to understand and to see all the issues that we managed to put together, we realized there are at least another dozen of issues that we should have put on the agenda, but maybe we'll try to do a better job of having even more issues on the agenda next year. With this, I want to encourage you all to please look up and read the papers which are up on the website. Everything was live streamed and it's going to be, all of the sessions are going to be put up on the YouTube so you can follow them there if there's something that you didn't understand or you'd like to see it again. And with this, please also join me in thanking the wonderful teams of Aspen, GMF, and the technical team which helped us through these 2 days. And thank you all for being with us for more than 48 hours, and see you again next year to our various events of both GMF and Aspen. Thank you.
Thank you.